Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geeky Gator channel. I am Geeky Gator, and today we are doing a new series that I was planning on doing earlier this year, but I am going to be doing right now, I guess, because there are no new movies releasing currently, and there's limited movie news. So I thought I'd bring back this series idea that I had. Which is studio report cards. In this series, I will be reviewing each major movie released by the major studios in 2019 and giving each film a grade based on how it was marketed, its reviews, audience response, awards, and most importantly, box office. Then we will average out all the individual films' grades from the studio to give the studio an overall average grade for how it performed in 2019, which is the year we are going to be doing. We're going to be giving each studio a grade for how they did with their movies and their slate in the year 2019. And there's no more fitting studio to start with than, of course, Disney. They accounted for nearly 33% of the film industry's market share without including Fox. And there's a reason they were so successful. The year of 2019 saw Disney's best release slate of movies yet, and was likely the most impressive movie slate in a single year from any studio ever. It is an extremely impressive and unprecedented year for the studio, bringing in hit after hit with very few misses. And before we begin going through each individual film and giving it its grade, just wanted to ask you, if you're enjoying the content you are seeing here, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and continue watching. It would be much appreciated. But kicking off with the first film we are going to be grading is Captain Marvel, released on March 8th, 2019. So Marvel movies have become guaranteed hits for Disney, with previous standalone films like Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp, all proving it isn't just about the team movies. Audiences will pretty much see any Marvel movie. Expectations were high going into Captain Marvel as the lead-in for the highly anticipated Avengers Endgame, yet somehow this movie surpassed all of those expectations. It broke the records for highest grossing, for the highest opening of a female-led movie, highest opening of a female-directed movie, and the highest grossing superhero movie with a female lead. And even more records. It shattered a ton of records. It made $1.12 billion on around a $150 million production budget, making back at least $414 million in profit, according to Deadline. There are no flaws behind the performance of this movie. The marketing clearly did what it had to, as it brought people in to see it. Although the trailers, they were on the weaker side. The best marketing for this movie was its genius placement pre-Endgame. It was on the lower end of reviews and ratings compared to other MCU movies. It was in the 70s, which is for the MCU on the lower side. With a very vocal minority of people who strongly disliked the film and hated it. But the general audience and the majority of people at least enjoyed it, and it made a ton of money. So there really wasn't much to complain about or to knock points for with Captain Marvel. So I gave it an A and a 96.
You turn to a cat?
What's a cat?
What about a filing cabinet?
Why would I turn into a filing cabinet?
So Disney started the year off very, very well with Captain Marvel. And then what was probably their weakest performance the entire year of 2019 was Dumbo, just a few weeks later on March 29th, 2019. It was definitely a disappointment for Disney, their biggest one this year, or this past year. The studio made a fatal mistake thinking there was the same level of interest in a live action Dumbo as there is for an Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast, as it had a similar production budget of $170 million, yet it made much less at only $353 million worldwide. The film likely lost the studio around $50 million or more, but this indicates a serious budgeting issue at Disney, where a movie like Dumbo, or previously Alice Through the Looking Glass, ends up costing more than Captain Marvel. Attaching Burton as a director was a risky choice. It could have paid off. He did good with the first Alice in Wonderland movie, but there could have been safer options to choose for a director. The Dumbo film, the animated version, is more at the level of popularity as a Lady and the Tramp rather than an Aladdin, I would say. But it still ended up costing the same as an Aladdin, which is not a good choice. And there is no reason a Dumbo movie needs to cost $170 million to make. It's about a flying elephant in a circus. It doesn't need that high of a budget. The marketing wasn't that bad. The trailers made the film look very emotional and impactful, but they may have also turned some audiences off as they don't want to watch an elephant movie that looks sad. And the trailers made it look a little sad. Overall, this was a miscalculation on Disney's part in a lot of aspects, and it was their biggest disappointment this year. So Dumbo is also going to be their lowest grade this year. It is getting a D plus at a 69%.
I botched that one. Oh, that's a botch.
But following Dumbo was Disney's smallest release this year, Penguins, on April 17th, 2019. It's one of their Disney nature movies, which never really bring in huge box office. It cost only around $5 to $10 million to make, and it only made $7.7 million in total. So when you add in probably the minimal, if at all, marketing for the movie, this probably cost the studio a small loss of around $10 million. The film didn't have much of a marketing presence, which was the right choice, not to spend too much money on marketing a small movie like this. The reviews from those who did see it were very much positive, as it's sitting at 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. So while a disappointment, Penguins didn't do much damage to the studio at all. So I'm giving Penguins a C grade, a C plus grade actually, at a 77%.
Americano di uno solo, gli americani.
Also in April, only the biggest movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. Similar to Captain Marvel, there were high expectations going into this movie, except only 10 times higher for this movie. Yet, this movie also surpassed all of those expectations to an unbelievable extent. It opened $100 million higher than the previous record holder for the biggest domestic opening weekend, which was $257 million from Avengers Infinity War the year prior. This movie, Avengers Endgame, made $358 million opening weekend domestically and $1.2 billion worldwide in one weekend. That is huge. These are huge numbers that many thought weren't even physically possible for a movie to accomplish in getting that large of a turnout. And I don't think we will see numbers on this level for a very long time, if at all, in our lifetime. The film beat out Avatar as the highest grossing film of all time, worldwide, making $2.8 million globally. A successful and impressive re-release was crucial in accomplishing this huge achievement. The film cost an estimated $375 million to make, and it probably cost around $250 million to market. So this film, likely when you calculate it all, brought in around $900 million in profit, according to Deadline, which was unheard of. No movie has ever brought in as much profit as Avengers Endgame has. Nearly $1 billion in profit, which is crazy. The movie was also universally enjoyed and was the best reviewed wide release movie of the year on Rotten Tomatoes. The marketing was obviously effective as it got tons of people to see this film on a scale that's not even close to any other blockbuster this year. The trailers strategically showed very little and revealed no story points. The best marketing for this movie, though, was the end of Infinity War, which is displaying a smart marketing strategy in the design and the decision to make these movies a two-parter. It's an extremely rare case of a total cinematic phenomenon with absolutely no business flaws. So Avengers Endgame is getting an A++. I'm giving it a 110%. It's getting 10 extra bonus points for, of course, being the highest grossing movie of all time.
Which, of course, he did, but, there's a lot of that going around, ain't there?
Honestly, until this exact second, I thought you were Build-A-Bear.
Maybe I am. They get another haircut?
Listen, Furface.
Why you bullying me?
Then, just a month later, in May, was Aladdin on May 24th, 2019. Yet another Disney film that surpassed all expectations. Except this time, the expectations were low. They were not high. The marketing for this movie was mishandled. The first trailer or teaser pretty much, was okay, but it was boring. The TV spot that they revealed Will Smith as the genie destroyed a lot of people's hopes and anticipation and expectations for this movie. Releasing a TV spot that reveals the genie where the VFX clearly isn't done and clearly doesn't look good was a bad business and marketing decision, especially because before then there were magazine images of Will Smith where people were worried he wouldn't be blue, and then we get to see him be blue and it does not look good. Then closer to the film's release, the clip of the Prince Ali song was a horrible choice for a clip out, as on its own, those few seconds or a minute or so, they played bad on their own, but in the context of the movie, it worked very well. The second trailer was actually a very good trailer, in my opinion, and displayed how the marketing should have been from the start, but it may have already been too long gone and too far ahead in the marketing at that point. The reviews for this one from the critics were mixed, as it was on the edge of a fresh tomato at around 58%. However, the audience clearly adored this movie, with many raving about the live-action remake, similar to The Greatest Showman. This one had great audience reception from the initial audience members, which led to more people who were hesitant, probably due to the reviews that it was getting, about going, and they ended up going because the initial audience members liked it so much, and many people also rewatched the movie multiple times. The casting was all pretty good, besides Jafar, and Guy Ritchie turned out to be a pretty good directing choice. It succeeded greatly despite the reviews and piss poor marketing. It had a $183 million budget and likely similar marketing budget. However, it made $1.05 billion worldwide, which means it netted around $356 million in profits. So, while there were many bumps in the road in getting to Aladdin, it succeeded greatly once it hit the silver screen. So, Aladdin is getting an A 95%.
What are you doing?
Sometimes, princess, sometimes you just have to take a risk.
Oh my god! Oh jeez! Oh my god!
Another family-friendly film opened later from Disney with Toy Story 4 on June 21st of 2019. After a weak June in the first few weeks, this was expected to rejuvenate the box office, and it did. It didn't compare to last year's Pixar sequel, The Incredibles 2, but it wasn't expected to, really, and this movie still surpassed Toy Story 3. Not by a lot, but it still did it. And I think this just shows that a lot of people felt like they didn't need another Toy Story after the third one ended it so perfectly. However, they still made a great follow-up, as it's one of 2019's best reviewed films at 98%, continuing the amazing, great reviews and quality trend that is the Toy Story franchise. The legs on the film were also very good, just like Aladdin. The marketing wasn't super strong, without much of a selling point to see it other than it's a Toy Story film, but they also made sure that it didn't seem like a cash grab by making it seem like a worthy, quality continuation that it was. It was made for $200 million, likely marketed for a similar budget, I would say, probably $150 to $175 in marketing, and it made $1.073 billion, meaning it likely made around $360 million in profit, according to Deadline. So Toy Story 4 is great. It's another A. It's another 95%.
Oh, this place is amazing.
Wasn't Buzz gonna meet us here?
He must be held up somewhere.
Another summer hit from Disney was, of course, The Lion King, the live-action remake, which came out on July 19th, 2019. The marketing for this one was interesting, in my opinion. The original first trailer, which debuted during Thanksgiving football, was great. It was a huge deal, and it hit very high view counts. However, the next trailer wasn't until April to play for Endgame, and it hit nowhere near the first teaser's popularity and views, and it also wasn't as good of a trailer. This trailer showed some of the emotionless animation of the animals as they're so realistic, which later came to fruition inside of the film. Most studios do, and should, debut a final trailer within a month of the film's release, as it's a proven successful strategy. Endgame did this. Joker, I'm pretty sure, did this. But this film had no other official trailer, leaving pretty much no big trailer for 3 months. Minimal marketing for 3 months leading up to its release. But the reviews, they were pretty harsh for this movie. And I believe it hurt it, unlike Aladdin, which had also pretty mixed reviews, but the audience, I think, liked it a little more than they liked The Lion King. Aladdin did something different enough with the original movie and seemed like most people enjoyed it, but with this one, it really divided people, as lots of people thought it was a beat-for-beat replica of the original movie, with less fun animation and emotion, and others just thought it was the same movie, but still fun and impactful. But it also, I think this film also started a little bit of a small movement of people who are already opposed to all these live action remakes, advocating for Disney to not continue doing them even more. But the movie was still a smash hit, because it's The Lion King and everyone loves that story. It cost $260 million to make, and likely around $150 to market. And it made $1.65 billion worldwide, which is huge, and it means it made $580 million around that in profit, which makes it even more profitable than 2018's Avengers Infinity War. So even though it didn't get great reviews, it wasn't as great of a movie as it could have been, business-wise in particular. This was a pretty much as close to a home run as you can get, so I gave Lion King an A+ at a 98%.
Don't do this, dude.
Yeah, this is your fault.
And then there was a big gap in terms of Disney releases, as the next Disney release was not until October 18th of 2019, with the Maleficent sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. The decision simply to make this movie was a mistake. I think so. And Disney should have looked at how another one of their live-action films that is based on source material, but kind of totally different, with Alice in Wonderland. The first Alice was a big hit, but the second was a huge bomb and a mistake to make. People seem to want live-action remakes similar to the original movies, and not completely different spins on the original movies. But then again, we just talked about The Lion King, so who knows what people want when it comes to these remakes. But even the idea of greenlighting this project, it's something that they should have known was a little risky and probably not the best choice of a movie to take up a spot on their release slate calendar. The marketing was it wasn't great, but it wasn't really bad. It was mediocre. They needed the film to have some sort of hook to attract audiences to this movie to use in the marketing, but the movie didn't have that. Most people were indifferent on the trailers or didn't even bother watching them. So while it wasn't bad marketing, it needed to be excellent marketing to get more people to see it. It was also a bad choice to reduce Angelina Jolie's Maleficent character, her role in the film, where she's the main draw, and she was not really the main character in the film. Similar to Dumbo, if you're going to decide and make this movie, don't give it as huge of a budget, because you shouldn't have as high expectations for this one. But this one had a $185 million budget, which is crazy. But unlike in Dumbo, you can sort of see it in this movie in some parts. It made $490 million worldwide, and business trades pegged the film's break-even point at around $500 million worldwide, meaning the film likely only lost around $10 to $15 million. But still, greenlighting this film was a mistake from the beginning. The marketing didn't do anything to change people's mind on seeing it. This film did better than expected, and it could have been a bigger disaster, but still not great. So Maleficent gets a C- at a 72%.
You're not welcome here.
Oh dear. What an awkward situation.
Then, in November, was a much more popular fantasy fairy tale with Frozen 2 on November 22nd, 2019. This film was a no-brainer to make, considering the huge success of the first Frozen. The release date placement was the perfect place for it, as these animated movies become huge hits in the Thanksgiving space. The marketing of the film was very good. It looked darker than the first one, showing that the material was maturing with the original fans who loved it 6 years ago. Yet it still totally looked family friendly for everyone of all ages. Kids who watched the first one and have matured a little more, and kids who are a little younger today. The concepts presented were also intriguing to adults, as it showed the world expanding even more to fantasy elements with wind and fire powers, rock giants, and they also promised to explain how Elsa got her powers, which all would intrigue an older audience more than the kiddie stuff in the film. Plus, the songs, which were hits once again, promoted the movie just through them being played nonstop, especially Into the Unknown. The reviews, they weren't as glowing as the first, but the majority of people still enjoyed it, and it seems like a lot of the general audience loves this film. The film cost, really, I'm surprised, only $150 million to make, and probably around $150 million to market. and it made $1.45 billion at the box office, the number 3 spot for 2019, behind, of course, only Lion King and Endgame. And the film brought in about $600 million in profit, and that's not even including all the tons and tons of money that it made in toys and merchandising sales, I'm sure. It's the highest grossing animated film of all time besides this year's Lion King. It's selling crazy right now on digital, and it's a huge hit that really had no bumps along the road in production, marketing, reviews, and of course, money. So Frozen, it's pretty much perfect. It gets an A+ and a 100%.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't this young and still in the shit.
Now, the final film of the Walt Disney Studios' 2019 release calendar was, of course, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which released on December 20th, 2019. This film is subject and victim to the planning issues inside of Lucasfilm and the way they completely mishandled this new trilogy. There was no overall plan or vision for the whole story. The direction the film went was reactionary to the divisive reactions to The Last Jedi, and it undid a lot of the ideas that that film introduced, and instead replaced it with cheap fan service. It is the definition of a safe movie, and not a good movie, to be honest. So now you have the fans of Last Jedi upset, and the detractors of that movie more pleased, showing how the trilogy overall isn't going to please really any Star Wars fan. However, it really isn't this film's fault that there was no plan for the 2 previous films. That was an issue overall. It's really, this film is just the result of it. The marketing for this, I think, was the weakest of the new trilogy installments. Not really great marketing, but it wasn't that bad. The big draw was, of course, that Palpatine had returned as the big bad guy, even though the final result of how he returned in the movie may have disappointed. The concept still brought in a good amount of people. The reviews were very mixed, with around 53% on Rotten Tomatoes, making it only the second rotten Star Wars film and the worst reviewed of them all. But some of the general audience seems to have enjoyed it, and the Star Wars fan base seems divided on it once again. A big factor in box office for these movies is repeat viewing. And the hardcore fans, I think, watched Force Awakens a lot, but this one really did not have a ton of repeat viewing. It made but it made $1.074 billion, putting the finale of the Star Wars saga behind films like Joker. This is a big disappointment, especially compared to the previous installments. The Force Awakens made $2 billion, and Last Jedi made $1.3 billion. It cost $275 million to make, and probably around $200 million to market, and made $1.074 billion in the end. This means it made about $300 million in profit, which is, of course, still a big hit. I'm sure any studio would take that, but it's still, I think, an overall disappointment compared to the previous installments. So Rise of Skywalker still gets a good grade at an A- with a 93%.
We've passed on all we know. But this is your fight.
So, that is the report card for Walt Disney and how they performed in 2019. They got an overall 91%, an A- when you average them all out. So, pretty good. I honestly don't think any other studio could do better because this was a huge year for Disney. They still, of course, had some faults, but big year for Disney. And yeah, I think Warner Brothers will be the next if we continue this series, report card. And then, of course, the other studios after that. So please like the video, subscribe, and keep on watching.